Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Mixed Doubles Podcast. We're your hosts, Maggie Robinson
and Smythe Macaulay.
We're former D1 athletes and former co-workers at the NFL with a passion for all things women's sports. If you're interested in more content, please follow us on Instagram at Mixed Doubles Pod. That's 1D, the Mixed and Double, share it. And Josh, take it away.
Oh my God, why did I forget what we were saying? All opinions stated here are our own and have no affiliation with our employers, Maggie's lack thereof now whatsoever.
Awesome. So welcome back to our interview series, you guys. Today we have Danielle Marmer, the general manager of the Boston Fleet in the Professional Women's Hockey League, the PWHL. Danielle is extremely well respected in the hockey community and is currently the youngest general manager in the PWHL. Prior to her role as GM, she was player development and scouting assistant for the Boston Bruins in the NHL and was the first woman to ever hold that on-ice role for the Bruins. There, she focused on evaluating and developing players and contributed to the Bruins' scouting efforts. Danielle has had a wildly impressive career thus far, and we can't wait to share her experiences. Welcome, Danielle, and thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
We're starstruck. That's what it is. We've got our fleet green on. Right. I don't even know if this is considered fleet green. It probably isn't.
Any green, we'll take
All
it.
Right. That'll do. That'll do. No, as Maggie said, thank you so much for being here. I guess just to kick it off, I mean, such like an incredible career so far, but we want to start from the very beginning and just your youth career and how you got into hockey in general. You're from Massachusetts, that's right?
Yeah, I was born here and lived here though until I was 3, and then my family moved to Vermont.
Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of growing up? We know your mother worked at a ice hockey rink, kind of facilitating that, and just how you got into hockey.
I mean, the skating actually started when we were in Massachusetts. My older sister was taking figure skating lessons, and I was along for the ride as, you know, any 2-year-old. And from how my mom tells the story, I was just like so difficult at the rink, like crying and complaining and wanting to get on the ice. And finally, I was giving her such a hard time. She asked the instructor, she's like, can she skate? Like, can she go out? And the instructor's like, it's going to be up to her if she, you know, can handle, like if she wants to do it and if she's going to be willing to fall and get back up and do the whole thing. And apparently I did and was into it. And then we moved to Vermont, and the ice rink that was there, they had hockey programs, but they didn't have figure skating. And at the time, we were taking figure skating lessons. And so my mom volunteered and started a figure skating club. And so that's how we got involved with the rink, or how she got involved with the rink. And we were there all the time anyways. And so when that job opened up to be the executive director of the rink, she ended up taking that job. She's like, I'm going to be here every day anyway with my kids. I might as well work here. So yeah, growing up, it was so cool. We'd be there every day. I was figure skating, and my dad, you know, he was the one who was like, if I'm going to be at the rink every day, my kid's at least going to put a hockey stick in her hand. So got into the hockey side. I don't think I was a very graceful figure skater. So around 5 is when I started playing hockey. And yeah, you know, we'd end up at the rink. We'd get dropped off at the rink if we were having play dates or sleepovers. Like my friends' parents would drop us off or pick us up at the rink. Like that was sort of home for us. We'd be there all day. And, you know, if there's a public skate, if there's a stick and puck, if there's practice, if there's figure skating lessons, like I would just be switching between my figure skates and my hockey stuff. So yeah, it was a blast. And I'm the middle of 3 girls. So my sisters and I had a lot of fun playing hockey and skating and doing all kinds of stuff at the rink. So I was very lucky. Like I got a lot of access to ice that I don't think most kids get. And, you know, that's definitely where I fell in love with hockey. You know, I played a ton of sports growing up. I played soccer, baseball. Growing up in Vermont, everybody skis, snowboards, you know, a little bit of tennis, just like anything I could get my hands on. I was very competitive. I liked being active, but hockey definitely was the one that kept my attention the longest.
That's so great. Yeah. It's like the rink is your backyard. Like very few kids have that opportunity, but that's what it sounds like. Oh, just drop me off here. Play date over time, but it's the rink.
Definitely like that annoying kid that acted like it. Like, this is my rink. Like, this is
For my
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is my place.
This is so
No,
awesome.
that's
That's such a great formative experience to just
Yeah.
have that opportunity to just go out whenever and also to try things when you're really young and to like not have the pressure to be good at it, but just to do it for
Totally.
fun.
Totally. I mean, that's such a good point. And my dad was working and my mom was busy at the rink. And so like nobody was paying much attention to us. So we were just running around, getting into trouble, but like fun trouble, trying different things. I think we were climbing like in the ceilings and in and out of locker rooms and trying like we would be putting figure skates on, playing hockey, like doing all kinds of weird stuff, but like that it honestly, I think a lot of that stuff, like it challenges you, it makes you comfortable being uncomfortable. You're weirdly agile from like climbing on the boards and jumping off of, doing all like the things that kids do. We were just creative and found ways to have fun doing it. And so, yeah, I definitely think like a lot of athletic abilities of mine were kind of created in that rink.
Totally. That is so cool. I'm like so envious of that experience.
I know. I want to ask a quick question too. I mean, just like at what point do you feel like, because it sounds like you guys were just out there having a ball. Like you guys were just having fun and this is what, kids were being kids and playing hockey because that was your backyard, essentially. But at what point do you feel like it kind of turned into like, okay, I really want to continue doing this? And like, were you watching any of the U.S. Olympic hockey teams, or were there any players in particular that you were looking at? Like, I could be like them.
Yeah, I wish I could say that was the case. It really wasn't. Like, I wasn't watching it on TV. And I think we were so busy. Like, we were playing, between just like being kids and playing and then the organized sports of it all. And like, I would go from soccer practice to hockey to, and back and forth. Like, I think a lot of us did when we were young. And so, yeah, I didn't know. It's funny as I spend more time in hockey, I'm learning things, learning about people, meeting people, and I'm like, I should have known who you were. Like so I think it came from I gained a lot of confidence playing hockey, and I felt like I was oftentimes better as we were growing up, like better than my peers, and then trying to, then I'd sign up for either an older team or like the next travel team or the next thing, and that's kind of how I think that was addicting for me. Like I enjoyed making the next team. I enjoyed just kind of getting to the next level, and I think that's where all of a sudden I ended up I'm playing college hockey. You know what I mean? Like it was like that kind of like, oh, I guess this is the path I'm on. But I don't remember ever having a moment of like, I want to play in the NHL or I want to, be like Hillary Knight or some of these players that, now are playing professional hockey, but who, she's an example of somebody who I was watching when I was a teenager playing hockey too. So
That's so great.
yeah.
What a full circle moment.
Yeah,
to
totally.
have her on your team as like a player in your management. Wow. That's incredible.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it just kind of happened. Like, and I don't know if you guys can relate to that or if you were, just kind of following the ranks of growing up playing sports and then finding you're good at it.
Yeah. Josh, I don't want to speak for you here, but I know for me, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, you just play up a year. Like I was a goalkeeper for soccer. And so it was like, oh, the team 2 years up needs a goalie. Oh, okay. They actually like how you're playing. Like, you want to just stay with them for the season? It was the same kind of thing of being like, oh. And I don't think I was particularly skilled. I just think I was, again, really athletic. That was my whole thing, was just like, it's going to happen because of my athleticism, not because I'm technically the best player on the field.
And you're competitive enough to figure it out. I think
that.
It's a great point. I think my parents thought it was easy if I could play on the team that my older sister is playing on. So
Totally.
I was like playing a level up. And when you're playing with kids who are just a little bit more developed and they skate a little bit better and you have to adapt, I think that's probably a big part of it as well.
Yeah. And then the competition for sure. Just like, if you're put in that position, you're not going to let yourself fail.
Right.
It's no way.
No, I was the exact opposite. I'm pretty sure like all my notebooks had like 2022 first round NFL draft pick.
No way.
And then I'm pretty sure like my Instagram bio, because Instagram came out for us in like sixth grade or something.
Yeah.
My Instagram bio was 2022 first round NFL draft pick and all that. So yeah, obviously your dreams get crushed at some point. No, I'm joking.
So cool though, because you had something you were trying to achieve. Like that must have motivated you so much. Like I didn't really feel that way. I was just like, oh, if I want to keep playing, and then I go to, I'm getting ahead of our path here, but like then I go to boarding school and then I want to keep playing. I guess I had to go play in college. And I was having so much fun doing it. And I think that's why I was doing, which, is also great. Like you're having fun doing it. That's what more can you ask for? But yeah, it wasn't like I want to make the Olympics. That wasn't the goal for me. But now, knowing what I know now, I'm like, that would have been cool if I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Would I have been better? Would I have worked harder? That's, you assume so.
You never know. You never
Never
know. But
know.
no, I think both ends are great. And obviously, like, that's what sports meant to be, is just fun and something that brings people together. So the
Yeah.
fact that you're able to do that and just have the amount of joy and, level of community that you did, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned a little bit, but would love to get more into it. What did it look like? So you said you went to boarding school, you were playing on these club teams. How did you end up at Quinnipiac? And what was it about that program, that school that really drew you in?
Playing in Vermont, I was playing the highest level that you could play in Vermont. It's a small state, lots of small towns, not a ton of competitive hockey. So I was given some advice by a college coach that was, basically like, if you want to play the next level, if you want to play college hockey at some point, you have to get out of Vermont. And you have to, the sort of, if you were from the Northeast or New England, the path at that point was go to a New England boarding school, play for a club team on the weekends, which that gives you your national exposure, and that's where college coaches are going to see you. But you're playing with your high school team or your prep school team in the week, and then you get recruited, and that's how it works. And I was intimidated by that idea of going away, so I didn't do it right off the bat. I did it my freshman year at my high school at home in Vermont. And then playing that level of hockey, I realized like I can't keep doing this. Like, I definitely want to get better. And at that point, I was already the best and I was a freshman. And so I knew that I wanted to keep getting better. I wanted to keep being challenged. And I did want the chance to play in college. And so I did finally the year after that, went to Loomis Chaffee in Connecticut. I repeated my freshman year, so I did 4 years there.
Wow.
And that was a really unique experience. It was so good for me. It was so diverse. Being from a small town in Vermont, you're with so many people who just like look the same, are from the same situation that you're in. And so it was awesome. Like, I had a roommate from South Korea, or, like just the people that you interacted with. It was a really good experience. And they were some of the smartest people that I've ever also encountered. So academically, it was a challenge. And I know you guys both went to very good, smart colleges, so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so like overall, it was like such a great experience, just challenging me in every possible facet. And I think being in that environment, like it definitely pushed me in the academic side of things. Like, you want to go to an Ivy League school or you want to go to an NESCAC.
Mhm.
And so I kind of got sucked into that a little bit. So Quinnipiac wasn't on the radar, even though it was 30 minutes away.
Wow.
Famous. Didn't do great on my SATs, but was talking to at the time Princeton, and they're like, we really like your hockey. You have good grades. You're, a good kid, but your SATs need to be better, need to be higher. And so I got a tutor. I took them again, got a little
That's
bit better, kept studying, took it a third time, was able to super score that score enough to be manageable to get into Princeton, or what they thought would get me into Princeton. And I found out this summer going into my senior year that it wasn't looking good for me from an academic standpoint. And things change, and I don't know the details of it, but like, you can give some help to some kids and
Yep.
not as much to others. And I think there are just better hockey players that maybe they're more invested in kind of giving that help to. And so my scores weren't good enough to overcome that. And so I was kind of late to the party. At that point, a lot of my teammates and classmates were committing or already committed. So there were only a handful of schools left that were still sort of interested, and Quinnipiac was one of those. It was three very different schools. Like, it was Quinnipiac, it was Middlebury, so now Division 3, NESCAC, and then it was Union, which was D1, but a struggling hockey program. And, different sizes. They were so different, yet I like didn't know how to make a decision. And I didn't really make a decision. Quinnipiac said there was a spot for me. They had offered their last scholarship out, and I was going to wait for that person to make a decision. And if she took it, I was going to go to Middlebury. And if she didn't take it, I was going to go to Quinnipiac. And
Wow.
and that's a crazy thing to admit.
You're like coin flip.
Yeah, again, being like an adult, and I wish I would have, I don't know, thought about it a little bit. I just was so torn. Like, I hated the idea of there being an entire league better than what I was playing. Like, yeah, I could go to Middlebury. They were a juggernaut for women's hockey. They, won so many national championships, and I could play a big role on that team and be on a winning team and be a big part of that. or I could go to Quinnipiac, battle to get into the lineup, struggle a lot, but get to play Division One, which is turns dream, when you're going through this process. And it's almost also that idea of, when someone's telling you something to be hard or you can't do it, you want it more. And so it wasn't an easy process. I didn't have every school wanting me to come play for them. And so hearing no a lot, I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And so once that player who is playing in this league currently, I'm going to keep her name out of it, but yeah,
Whoa. Does she know this story?
She doesn't know. We've never talked.
Okay.
Oh.
She decided to go somewhere else where you win a lot of national championships. And I decided to go to Quinnipiac. And that opened the door to like so much of my path is because she made that decision for me. I want to say it because I made that decision, but because that was the decision that was made. They told me it'd be hard, and I just like didn't really believe them. They're like, yeah, it's gonna be hard for you to get in the lineup. And you're like, yeah, sure. Everything that has been hard for me, I figured out and found a way to like play a lot and be an impact player. So I'm not worried about that. And this was the first time it was like, no, like I needed to listen to them. It was incredibly hard. Like I was stepping into a world where, I was a big fish in a small pond in New England girls hockey. And most of my team were Canadians or from Minnesota. We had Swedes on the team. That pool opens up and you're competing against so many players who we're all training at a significantly higher level than I was at that point. I felt like I was behind right off the jump. And instead of feeling motivated in that moment, it was discouraging for me. So I spent the first 2 years, I'd say like cutting corners. Like it was intimidating and I could feel that I wasn't up to par with like the standard and the standard of play. And I'd never felt that before. And it was like an adversity I'd never faced before. And instead of facing it head on, I just sort of skirted by. And as the kid who needed to be showing up to the rink, earlier than everybody else and doing extra workouts and extra skill sessions, I was avoidant and I'd show up like just when I had to be there, like your mandatory lifts, your mandatory practices, like right on time. I wasn't spending any extra time there. And then it also like delusional, expecting me to get better and to get opportunities. But I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain, really. I was just showing up to what I had to show up to. And at the same time, I had a coach who he ended up getting fired after my sophomore year for being like abusive essentially. And so he was really difficult for me to build a relationship with. Like we didn't really have a relationship. I didn't feel like he cared about me at all. I was scared of him. And so that was challenging too, because like on top of already feeling like I'm behind, I didn't feel like I had somebody who was looking out for me or who was supporting me or wanted to help me, and who I was honestly like so intimidated by and scared of. So like that was another reason I wasn't showing up to the rink the way that I should have. And after he was let go, Cass Turner, who's now the head coach there, she was the assistant at the time. She took over as head coach and just like changed honestly everything. Like she's the reason that I'm on the path that I'm on and I have the jobs that I've had, and it sort of, helped me fall in love with hockey again. Cause like, talking about it from my childhood, it was really always because I just loved it and I had so much fun with it. And so being able to find that again with a coach who was helping me find that was a really cool experience. And we had a hard conversation going to my junior year, which was essentially like, you've wasted 2 years. Like, what do you want the rest of your college career to look like? And she's like, you have a lot of good friends on the team. Like you're a social leader on this team. They want you to do well. Why don't you start by being, we called it bench energy, like be the person who's letting everyone know, like when they're doing something well, they're going to listen to you and they're going to be excited for you. And you start in the weight room. So that was an area that I was, more comfortable in being in the weight room. And so I'd be loud and energetic, and like that would get me into it a little bit more and like help me focus in and get excited for other people. And that translated to practice. Now I'm having fun at practice. And that was a crazy moment for me when I realized I'm having fun at practice and you want to be there more and then you get better. And it all seems so simple, especially now that I've been coaching and having a career in hockey. I'm like, yeah, no, like, duh. But at the time it was like revolutionary, as a 20-year-old kid, that was such a revolutionary moment to realize you're having fun with this. You're going to get better. You're going to spend more time here. And I had to make it fun. So, cheering on my teammates, getting excited for them. And then in games, that put me on the bench. So my first couple of years, I was just in and out of the lineup, and being that, having that attitude and that energy puts me on the bench, and now I'm an option. And so now it's, I'm getting excited about, everyone in the arena knows when we score a goal to get excited, but I'm the person getting excited for my teammates when they block a shot, when they battle a puck out of the D zone after we've been hemmed in there for a long time, when they get a good stick on the forecheck, those things that maybe your average fan doesn't really know and your coaches are excited about. And so I'd let our team know, and that changed my thought process of, I just have to go out there and have a good stick. I just have to block a shot. I don't have to go out and score a goal to be noticed or to be recognized or to get credit. And so it really simplified the game for me. So then I just went out and tried to have good habits and play the game the right way. You get a little bit more ice time. You're trusted by your coach, and then slowly you start to play a lot more. And then, my senior year, I'm starting going to playoffs. And so it's all stuff that, like, sometimes it feels silly to talk about because it does feel obvious, but it was such an important experience for me to go through sort of on my own to figure. I mean, so much help from my head coach, but it wasn't like you could have told me that and I would have understood it. I had to go through it, and it took me 4 years. So that's sort of the college story. And simultaneously, because those first 2 years when I was really unhappy being at the rink and I wasn't enjoying hockey, was the first time I found myself not impressive, which was a real shot to my ego. And I didn't know how to handle that. And I think a lot of athletes experience that. And so coming from a high academic boarding school, I was like, well, I can do academics. So I took a pre-law course or legal studies class and was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do legal studies. I'm going to go to law school. I'll be competitive and impressive there. When I come home for, Thanksgiving, my grandparents are asking me how hockey's going. I can kind of push that aside and tell them about how I'm going to go to law school. And that'll sort of shift everybody's perspective. And so I spent so much time in the classroom, was so into that too. And as, I'm starting to fall in love with hockey again, my interest in legal studies is starting to dip. And I'm realizing that was sort of just something to, it was a replacement in a sense, and it wasn't real. At the time, I think, I took my LSATs my junior year. I applied to law school my senior year. I was getting into law school, and I remember getting a phone call from admissions office that I'd gotten in and pretending to be excited. I had to pretend that I was excited about it. I didn't know how I was going to feel to hear that I got in. And I remember that moment, oh, that's awesome. And hanging up being like, I should feel a lot better about this.
Wow.
And I think it was because I didn't really actually want to be a lawyer. I think I just was doing it to be impressive. And I was simultaneously bummed out that I just figured the hockey thing out and my time had run out. And so I was sitting in my coach's office and I was explaining that to her. And she's like, I think there are ways for you to stay in the game. There are ways for you to continue growing in hockey. So that's how I started coaching. She connected me with the head coach at Connecticut College, where I met Lexi. And that's how I ended up in the coaching world. And it was I had to put a deposit down. I want to say we lost to Princeton in playoffs my senior year, and I had to put a deposit down in law school 3 days later. So I made that decision really fast.
Wow. And so you'd put a deposit down you were
I was going
to.
So yeah, it was okay, pick the school you're going to, where are you going to law school? They need your deposit. And I just pulled out and decided I was going to coach hockey and make $16,000 a year as an assistant coach that was part-time and acted like it was full-time,
Wow. I just want to pause.
Sorry, I just talked so much. That was
an incredible story. No, I'm so
happy. Some of those ums out, okay?
That was so good. And I also, you're speaking our language for sure. We can both really relate to your story. I know for me, I was a bench warmer all 4 years. And for I look at my college career in two halves. I struggled for the first two. It was the mindset thing.
Yeah.
And it was the mindset thing paired with, I also understand the academics of who are you doing this for?
Yeah.
Is this for you because you really want to do it or because you think it's going to look good to other people?
Yeah.
And it's a really rude awakening to be oh, shoot, this isn't actually for me.
Totally. And I think it still can be challenging to separate that. In everything we still do. I still think my dad is my best friend, and he's so a big part of he was the guy. I would be on the phone with him every day my freshman year, I can't do this. And he's the one who's keeping me afloat.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm am I doing this because I wanted my dad's approval, because I wanted him to be proud of me, because he kept me alive that whole time and kept me involved in in it. And Like it totally makes you wonder, like, what is the motivation for doing a lot of these things? And
Yeah.
a lot of us athletes.
Yeah. I also just want to give you a shout out because you were acting like you didn't have the academics to get into Princeton. Meanwhile, you were Dean's List 5 times at Quinnipiac and you were the scholar athlete your senior year and named like all
I
academic.
wasn't at the rink. I was studying.
That's where the focus went.
Yeah, sometimes wish I'm like, I didn't need to get A's in college. Like I wish I was getting A's at the rink, like I wish I was killing it there. Because, that's where I grew up. Like that's where I learned the most was the hockey piece. And that's not to, I know it's like, this is so against like every code ever. Like when I was coaching, it's like, it's about academics and then you're a student and then you're an athlete. But I'm like, everything I learned is really from the hockey piece of it. And so, yeah, like in hindsight, I wish I had spent more time at the rink. I wish I had worked harder there for sure.
Totally. I mean, you're speaking to two people who also like played college sports and then were like, oh shoot, actually I want to stay in sports for my profession. Not what I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
Neither of our majors relate to sports, but here we are. So I think we can deeply relate to what you're saying. What was it that made you focus on player development specifically and like scouting? How did you get into that niche?
Accidentally. I think a lot of my story is a failure, like failing upwards and failing forward. I got comfortable with that because of my experience at Quinnipiac. And so I was an assistant coach at Connecticut College, Division III. And I really loved that experience when there's only the head coach and myself. And so I was the equipment manager. I was food. I was planning the bus trip. And then I'm running a power play and I'm also running the forwards and doing the hockey piece and helping run practice. So I got to experience a lot, got my hands in a lot of things. And ultimately, I think the player development piece comes in because that was my experience. Like I wanted to do for other people what Cass had sort of helped me with. Like I recognized there has to be a lot of kids or college players who feel like I did and don't know how to get over that hump, like don't know how to, are cutting corners and don't realize it. And I wanted to help those people. And so I did 2 years at Connecticut College, but ultimately I wanted to be somewhere where you could provide players with every resource to be successful and that they are doing this at the highest level. So I knew I wanted to get back to Division I, and the head coach at Quinnipiac, Cass Turner, is like, why don't you come back to Quinnipiac? I don't have an assistant position open for you, but we have this hockey ops role. We can turn it into a player development role. She didn't want to box me into like a logistics, planning the meals and the buses and those kinds of things. She knew I wanted to coach. She wanted to develop coaches. So she allowed me to do a lot in terms of what I was allowed to do. At the time, there was only allowed to be 3 full-time coaches on a staff in the NCAA for Division I hockey. So I couldn't get on the ice and I couldn't be behind the bench for games, but I filmed and coded every practice and game. I could break down the video. I could help do the opponent scouting and plan the video sessions for our pre-scouts. And then I helped build these player development plans for each player on our team. And so the player development thing, like I didn't know what it meant, to be honest. Like it was just like the title to sort of like show that I was interested in coaching, and that's what she was telling me to do. Like I didn't realize where that was going to lead. I'm not sure if she realized where that was going to lead, but it becomes important later on when I'm interviewing for the Bruins and they need a player development coach. I did 2 years there. I was doing my master's at the same time. So I was doing that in strategic communication. And when I was done with that, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I miss being on the ice for practice. I miss being behind the bench. I went out and I applied for a ton of Division I assistant coaching jobs. I thought I had a compelling story, what I just shared with you guys, taking not a very linear path, going to Division III and then coming back into operations, and really feeling like that was a great experience because it gave me an understanding of how a Division I program operates and everything that happens behind the scenes and how things run efficiently, and all of the video stuff that I had done and all of the analysis and breakdown and pre-scouting. Like I thought that would translate really well. And I applied to 7 places. I think I was a finalist at all 7 places.
Wow.
One of the jobs. And so I heard no a lot. And the one job that I did get just wasn't going to be the right fit. Like I wanted it to be somewhere where I knew that I had people who wanted to support me and help develop me and, help me move on to the next thing. And I didn't get the sense at that one place that I got the yes from. So I heard no a lot. And a lot of it came down to the fact that I didn't have proven experience recruiting. So I wasn't allowed to be on the road. That was the other thing. Like you could only have
Wow.
3 coaches on the road. Because, if some of those Big Ten schools could afford to have 4 or 5 coaches and they're out 5 coaches,
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
smaller schools with 3. Like, so that's the NCAA compliance stuff. So that was the knock, was like, these things are great, but you don't have a proven experience to recruit, essentially. And so I had finished my master's, and Cass, the head coach at Quinnipiac, was like, look, why don't you come back and just do a 3rd year here and we'll figure out the next steps. Like, well, you don't have school, so we can add something else to your plate. And so she was sending me like all kinds of different things. I can't even remember most of them, but I remember them feeling like they were just like homework assignments, getting emails from her. And yeah, I was a colleague at this point, but she was still my coach. So I'm like, I still felt like
Yep.
I had to
Yeah.
do, so I'm just like annoyed every time she's sending me something. And she sends me one that was the Bruins were starting a diversity and inclusion mentorship program with their scouting department. And I'm like, well, I was born in Massachusetts. I'm a Bruins fan. This could be cool. And so I applied for it, thinking like I could tell her I took one of your ideas. And I applied for it. It was a little bit more of I wouldn't say it's an intensive application process, but it was like you had to apply and then I had to interview 2 times. And then I got accepted into the program. And it was a 9-month program where I got paired up with a scout for the Bruins. And they would send video and they'd give you a scouting report, the same kind of template that they use currently for scouting, and you'd watch players and evaluate. And then you would meet with your mentor and talk about the video and the players that you saw and break down, their game. And so I was very fortunate to be paired with Ryan Nato, who is the head of amateur scouting for the Bruins. And he was like, how does Tuesday 9 a.m. sound to you? And I'm like, oh, sounds good. I thought this was going to be a once a month thing, maybe, but like, sure, if this guy wants to meet with me weekly, like we can do that. Turns out nobody else met weekly.
Oh.
But we just had such a good time. We just got along, like how we talked about hockey. He taught me so much. There were definitely times where, it felt like homework assignments and I'd have a full-time job. And so it'd be Monday night. And I'm like, man, I haven't done my scouting report yet. And I have to meet with him at 9 a.m. And I'm like, should I cancel? And I'm like, if this guy can take time out of he's got to be the busiest guy on the planet. Like if he can take time out of his day to meet with me, I can do this scouting report. And so thankfully I did it every time. And we, got through 9 months of it. And he knew like my whole story and my plan. And that I was hoping to put this on a resume to prove that I could identify talent and project, players. And because that was sort of the knock on me in those, when I was interviewing the summer before. And so I just thought it was gonna be something to add to my resume. And he asked me how the job hunt was going. And I was like, it was March at this point. It's a little early. The finals just happened. Like the turnover hasn't really hit yet. And he's like, what do you think about working for us? We have some scouts that are moving on. Are you interested in scouting? And I'm like, yeah. And I, again, don't know what it takes, anything about it, but I'm just like, this person from the Bruins is asking me if I want a job.
Well, yeah.
Of course.
And he's like, yeah, like, maybe I'll get you connected with Don Sweeney and we could see, if there's something that works here. And when I met with Don, he was looking at my resume and we were talking about it. He's like, oh, player development. Again, never really knew what that meant. Like, didn't know if I was actually doing player development, but it was the title that Cass put on that job for me. And I told him about what I did and my story and what I wanted to do and help players. And he's like, we're looking to expand our player development staff. This could be a fit. And that's how I ended up doing player development and a little bit of scouting for them, which I am so fortunate that that's how it worked, because scouts have a hard job. Like they are.
Oh, yeah.
That's travel.
They are, they're travel. Yeah, they are not home ever. They're watching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hockey players they may never actually draft or talk to or interact with, but they have to know them all. For me, we had, let's call it 20 guys. So my job was the Bruins draft, however many players, usually somewhere around 7, give or take a few, at a draft. I meet them. I right off that. And from there on, like they're somebody that I'm paying attention to. So in the NHL, you get drafted. It's not like football where you go play right after you get drafted. You get drafted at 18, you might not make it to that NHL club till you're 20, 21, 22. So you'll go play junior hockey, you'll go play college hockey. And then when you're age eligible, you can go play in the AHL. And then unless you're, Connor Bedard's an example, 18 gets drafted, goes and plays in the NHL right away. He would not have been allowed to play in the AHL. You have to be, I think you have to be 19 in order to play in the AHL, maybe 20.
Wow.
So I'd be following these guys while they're playing college hockey or while they're playing junior hockey. And so being in Boston, the nice part about that was we had 7 guys who were playing college hockey in the Boston area between BC, Northeastern, Providence. And then at the same time, once a week I'd get on the ice with the Providence Bruins for the AHL affiliate and do skills and, be there for practice and do skills with those guys. So what was cool for my position was a lot of player development staff. The AHL team is not near the NHL team. So they live by the AHL team. And so since Providence is so close, I lived in between Providence and Boston, closer to Boston. And because I was around, I was invited into a lot of, management conversations. I was there, at amateur scouting meetings, trade deadline meetings, conversations, with free agents, and just got to see what Don Sweeney does and see what that management does, which I think is an experience that I was really lucky to have that I don't think a ton of player development staff get to do because they're usually spending more time with their AHL affiliate.
Wow. Sounds like you had amazing people around you supporting you as well.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. And something that I learned early on is you need people to advocate for you and you have to have mentors. And I was really, really lucky. Cass was somebody who went out of her way to help me out, just to keep me on track, to give me opportunities. I don't get the Bruins job without her talking incredibly highly about me. And I knew that in the moment. And, that was advice that I want to say my dad gave me. He's like, she's your ticket to the next place. So your job is, I don't care what your job is to make her life easier. That's it, And I felt that way, with the Bruins as well. I'm like, hey, these people are my ticket to the next thing, make their lives as easy as possible. And that's sort of how I tried to operate.
I mean, it doesn't even really sound like you failed up. It just sounds like
right.
you took the no's and you turned them into better yeses. It's such a perfect storm of everything that you were able to do. And I think it's a great segue into kind of learning more about your experience now as a GM, just because, for those listening, and you can explain more, but the GM position for any team encompasses so much because you would know better than us, but you're looking at your current roster, you're scouting other players, you're anticipating the needs of the team, you're communicating with the coach or the entire coaching staff. So there's so many different things that you have to do. And you just got all of those experiences by just, being in the right place and doing the right thing and working extremely hard and not doing the scouting reports. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect. But yeah, I do want to use that as a segue to where you are now as the GM of the Boston Fleet in the PWHL. So just tell us the story. How did that position even come on your radar? How did you end up in this? And then what has that experience been like now?
It's funny. I remember, so I just finished year 1 with the Bruins. I was convinced I'd be there forever. I learned so much in that 1 year. And it was just blown away. I spent my entire life in this game and I thought I knew so much about it. And they just completely changed the way I thought about it and taught me so much. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that experience, that opportunity. And I was really excited to go into year 2 because I don't think you can be really great at anything after a year. So I was just like a sponge and I was a little more reserved. And I'm on the ice with the Providence Bruins. I'll say something sometimes, but I'm not going to be incredibly confident to correct something that especially when I'm there once a week and that coaching staff, those guys are there every day. I'm not going to come in and say too much, do too much. But I was really excited about year 2 to go in and feel like I could impact and add a little bit more value than I had in year 1. So I had no thought about leaving. I actually saw the announcement for the PWHL. I said, that's great for women's hockey. And then I moved on. I didn't even give it a thought. I'd seen the attempt of professional women's hockey prior to that. It didn't really work. And so I wasn't that impressed, honestly. I just wasn't that interested. And I got a phone call from the like agency that was helping hire for those positions and asked me if I was interested in going through the interview process and applying. And Cass actually once given me some very good advice, and she's like, never say no to the job that you don't have. And so I remembered that in that conversation. So I was like, sure, like I'll go through this process. And if anything, I touched a little bit on like being really fortunate to be a part of some of those internal conversations with the Bruins. And I started to get interested in the management side. I just thought the roster building component of it was really neat. And so I'm like, if anything, maybe this allows me, I can go through this interview process. Because the interview process was, tell us what you do in your first 90 days. How would you build culture, and what are your core values? So I thought, if anything, like this could be a cool exercise to take back to the Bruins, maybe let Don Sweeney know this is a path I'm potentially interested in. Maybe I could spend a little bit more time with him or shadow him, or that was really the intent, was just sort of a learning experience. And the more that I learned about the league and the investment from Mark and Kimber Walter and Billie Jean King being involved and Alana Kloss, like that's when I was like, this is different. This isn't the professional women's hockey that we've seen before. This is going to have the resources to pay the players to, there was a CBA already in place. This was going to allow players the resources that they need to really truly feel like they're professionals. And the more I went through that process, the more conversations I had, the more I realized like I needed to be a part of it.
That's amazing. Just to hear that story. Also, you might have to clip that line earlier. Don't say no to the job you don't have yet. That
was a good one. That was a mic drop.
good
For
one-liner.
sure.
That was a great one-liner.
I think like so much of my path has been saying yes to things, like saying yes to that Bruins mentorship program, saying yes to, and I catch myself like starting, especially when I get comfortable, being like, I don't need to do that speaking engagement, or I don't need to do that, or whatever it is. And every time I say yes, there's like something positive that comes from it. So yeah, that's definitely something that like was sitting with me, or I was thinking about in that conversation. I'm like, I should say yes to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Say yes to the dress, whatever they say. It's like,
I have to say one thing though. In my very short professional career, isn't like all 2 years of it now, like being the yes man to yourself has been the biggest door opener ever. Yeah. Even if, and it sounds like maybe kind of similar, like you don't entirely know what you're saying yes to in the first place.
Right.
But like someone sees it in you and you're like, all right, sure. Like I can figure this out. Again, like do it for a year, learn a lot, and then I feel like
it's a learning experience either way. You either learn like, okay, I never need to do this again, and now I won't ever waste my time, or it opens doors to things you just like really never thought were possible.
Yes. Yeah. Just thinking of like talking to younger college students who are going through this process now of like job searching. That's the best advice, is just like say yes to things, because it's going to lead you in one direction or another, and it's going to get you there way faster than if you were hesitant or said no or overthought it.
Totally.
So what does it look like now for you as the GM, the Boston Fleet? I mean, you've got 2 years under your belt. I can imagine it's different in ways than your experience with the Bruins. Obviously, you guys have had success, want to see some more success in the future.
Yeah.
For those that don't know what being a GM is like, what's the day-to-day, which I'm sure is so different day-to-day. But
well, in this league, it's very unique. I was hired, and I think less than 20 days later, I had to sign 3 free agents and then draft 15 rounds of a draft the entire team, and then hire, coaching staff, the entire staff. I should probably know like the number, but there's 15 of us who work full time, probably more than that from the hockey ops side. So hire out an entire staff and build the culture and, start this. Draft was in September and puck drop January 1st. So to start, get into a practice facility, renovate the locker room, make everything like, the whole point of this league, like this was to allow these players to feel like true professionals. Like player experience and the professionalism is the forefront of everything that we do. And so it was my job to make it feel that way. And so year one was like a total blur. Like I honestly can't remember a lot of it. I was told that I should have a journal and write about it, and I wish I did. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea, and I never did it. But like, because like, yeah, I honestly feel like I blacked out. But yeah, it's the roster construction component. So like, if we were to start now, it's a little complicated because we're expanding 2 more teams, adding 2 more teams to the league. So we have an expansion draft that's going to come up, but then you have entry draft, you have free agency, and then you invite players to camp, and then next fall we'll do training camp, and then you're getting your team fully set. And being a GM is it's so hard because there isn't a blueprint for how to do it. And I think that's something that I've always been really comfortable with is, my whole thing about like making somebody else's job or life easier. I'm like, I am the top. So who am I doing this for? Like,
Yeah.
what's my, like, I make my schedule essentially. I have to figure out like, what are the priorities for every day? Who needs the most help? Where do I allocate my resources and my time to? Connecting with the business side, making sure that we're in sync so that, we're selling tickets, we have the right players going to the right appearances. And then just like overall managing your staff and connecting with coaching staff, making sure that we're aligned on player development goals, how we feel about players. I need to know how she feels about players. If there are certain players that are challenging for her to coach, do they make sense to be on our team, or, vice versa? She's going to have a particular style. It doesn't help our team for me to bring in players who she's going to keep on the bench because they're not the type of player that she wants to be, that she doesn't trust on the ice, for example. It's honestly just aligning with all of these people all the time. It can sometimes feel like I'm a therapist a little bit, just not in like, I have the most incredible staff. It's just like, I remember feeling this when I was doing hockey operations at Quinnipiac. I thought my job was the most important job. Anything that hindered my ability to do my job, I'm like, this is a problem. Like,
yeah.
And so when you have, 15 plus people who feel that way, and you want people who feel that way, you want your athletic trainers to feel like their job's the most important. You want your equipment staff to feel like their job's the most important, your coaches, etc. So whenever you want, the resources can't be allocated fully to one direction here, to one department. And so if there's anything that what might be best for our strength coach might not be best for our athletic trainer, or the best time to lift might not be the best time for our coaches to practice, so it's managing all of that. It's managing how people feel and making sure that everyone feels valued, everybody understands what their job is and what their role is, and then that we execute. I have a plan most days, and the day never goes as planned. There are things that come up, and just whether it's conversations or fires that you have to put out or whatever it is, that's the thing. Sometimes I end the day, I'm like, none of the things I thought I was going to do today I accomplished, but it's managing the budget, and you're hiring staff and you're letting staff go who aren't performing, and it's a lot. Definitely thought I'd be more involved a little bit more in like the hockey piece itself. Like there's so much more that goes on to, being a GM, being a part of a professional league, I think that people realize. Yeah. But it's been awesome. It's really cool to have sort of my fingerprints in the building of all of this in the beginning of this league.
Yeah, I mean, it's brand new. You got in kind of as the building was going up, essentially, and you're wearing so many hats. I mean, just as a GM, I think for me, though, one of the more important hats that I think of, and you mentioned it earlier as you were going through the interview process, and they're asking you, like, how do you instill culture? How do you provide culture to the team and to all the people that you're working with? I guess not putting you on the spot here, but what have you done, or how do you kind of see the culture that's been built around the Boston Fleet team since you've kind of got there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like, I knew that I had to hire the best people. Like, you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with. And I knew when they called me to tell me that they were offering me the job, I was prepared for that phone call to go a completely different direction. And I had that moment of like, oh, can I do this? Like, that like imposter syndrome. And so I'm like, I just have to hire the best people. So I talked to people in the coaching world and connected with Courtney Kessel, who's our head coach. And we just aligned on a lot of the same things. And we met one time, ended up getting coffee for like 3 hours, but I remember driving home being like, this is the person I need to lead this team. So started with the head coach, and then slowly it built. But like, we knew that we wanted good people, like great people who team first is one of our core values. We wanted people who were team first, who, no job was too big or too small. Anyone was willing to help out in any department. I wanted people to feel valued, like their work mattered and they're showing up to something important every day. And I wanted to create an environment where it was fun to come to the rink every day. Like I wanted players and staff alike to just enjoy each other. And I didn't want to feel like, oh, the GM's walking by, like everyone stiffen up. So that was a big part of it. The core values, like I mentioned, team first. I always use this plane analogy, like, a plane is taking off and trying to get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And so the wheels go up, the flaps go in, and, you're eliminating the friction. And so a lot of what we talk about is like eliminate the friction. So, the plane can get to where it's trying to go if the wheels are down and the flaps are up, it just gets there slower. So like, you're often not going to derail the direction of the plane, but you're for sure going to slow it down. If you're somebody who's going to complain about your playing time or your role on the team or all the things that I was honestly doing when I was those first 2 years at Quinnipiac. I was baggage, I was friction. And so it was, helping people eliminate the friction. That was a big part of it. And we did that by having a growth mindset, which is, one of our core values, and knowing that you're going to face adversity. What's our attitude heading into it? Wanted respect was a big one. We're going to respect everybody's contribution to this organization, no matter how big or small. And integrity, just doing things the right way. Your representation of not just, yourself, not just the fleet, but this league, the city of Boston. How do you want to represent yourself? And this is pro hockey. Like, you don't get away quite as much like the same way you did in college with holding people accountable the same way. They have to hold themselves accountable. They have to hold each other accountable. And we're not going to be watching every little thing you do. We're not holding your hand through workouts and the way that I feel like it was a little bit in college. So making sure everybody felt like they knew what they needed to do and they were doing it the right way. So establishing those core values was a big part of it, and talking about it as much as we can. That's something I'm still need to get better at, is like, it's easy to kind of forget about those things, and finding opportunities to be like, hey, that was really team first of you, or, I felt like you respected me that moment, or just like talking about our culture, talking about our core values and why it's important. And I don't know, I like to think it's because of me. I think it's because I have great coaches, I have great staff, I have Hillary Knight as our captain, who's an incredible leader. I think they are really the culture drivers. Like, I talk about it a lot, but they're the ones who are implementing it. And I do think when you talk about something enough, though, everyone starts to mimic that and talk about it. And you ask them, like, that's the thing that I'm the most proud of, is how they talk about our culture, how much that team cares about each other. It doesn't matter what's happening. Like, they really love each other. And that's really cool to see.
That is so special. It feels like you've also poured all your life experiences into this team culture. Like, you want people to have fun because that's how you got into the sport. You realize and like have the self-awareness to know, like, okay, my first 2 years in college probably weren't the best mindset wise.
Yeah.
Make sure that my own players aren't feeling the same way, and like that it's a more team focused look. Like, I think you're so quick, and it's so humble of you to give this to other people, but also like you're bringing so much perspective, and like they can feel that it's a lived thing. And I think that speaks volumes when you're interacting with people, and they can say like, oh, there's action behind her words. It's not just like false sentiments of like team first and like go squad, like play for your second person on the bench,
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually never thought of it that way, of like, those are all things that I've experienced. But I do think like you have to be authentic in how you operate. Like, people see through that. So I'm glad that you picked up on that and that it feels authentic to my experience.
Totally.
I'm ready to suit up.
You need an extra player. You got Josh on the bench.
I definitely can't.
Well, how'd you get the expansion draft?
Speaking of, we were going to ask about the expansion draft. I don't know how comfortable you are answering any questions there, but
I'll try. I'll navigate. I'll let you know.
All right, cool. We know the expansion draft is coming up, and obviously a really big thing to look for. I mean, it's great for the PWHL that it's already expanding, kind of going into year 3. We've got Seattle and Vancouver, 2 teams. But then from your perspective as a GM, this shakes things up, right? And, I can speak to it as I've known expansion drafts with like the WNBA and other leagues. But when that happens, it's usually you have to protect a certain amount of players and kind of think through the strategy of, who do we really want to make sure that we keep on the team? And then kind of like that difficult decision there. Just from your perspective, how are you kind of thinking about this expansion draft leading up?
I have split emotions about it. Like, to your point, it's incredible that we are at a place where we're expanding before the second Walter Cup has even been handed out. Like, that is, if that doesn't show you or tell you how successful this league is, like, I don't know what will. It's mind blowing to me. So it's really cool that we've built something that has an appetite to expand into other markets. I talk about culture, I talk about this team, like the idea of losing players off this team is heartbreaking. It's professional sports, it's how this goes, and it is what it is. But, we still are working through what the expansion draft rules are going to be, how many we can protect. So I don't know those answers yet. I believe I'm going to find out tomorrow, actually. So maybe this podcast drops. But I have a feeling, like, I think there's a incentive for those teams to be really good and for there to be parity across the league. Like right now, there's so much parity. Any team can win any game, and that's why it's so successful. And so I know there's an incentive and a drive to make sure that Seattle and Vancouver are really good hockey teams. And for that to happen, it means that good players from my team are going to end up on those teams. And so it's a hard pill to swallow, but I understand it and I get it. And, I was hired to be part of building this league, and that's what this is. This is part of the build. So it's a really exciting thing for this league, a little less exciting for the Fleet, but it'll be a really good thing for our game.
I was gonna ask too, this is a super silly question, but I've played Chell before. I don't know if you've played Chell at all. They added the PWHL teams on this last one. Do you ever, because growing up I would play maybe Chell, Madden, whatever. And you were always like, I'm gonna be the GM and I'm gonna make my team, right?
Yeah.
Put Tom Brady and Drew Brees and all these guys on the same NFL team or whatever. Do you use Chell at all as like a simulation? Are you going through the season with your PWHL team, with your Boston Fleet, and thinking, all right, let me move some pieces around here and see how they play together on this video game? I don't know. I won't
So funny.
ask
Like,
GM.
I don't think I've ever played Chell. We played Madden all the time. Like, I was such a Madden fan. Yeah, on my GameCube. I loved being like the 2007 Patriots. I never played NHL. It is so cool though that the women in this league are in that. We definitely joke about that. Like looking at the player ratings, I'm like, I would have changed that one. She's a little bit better than that. But I joke around like with some of the players, like, they'll play a few of them on our team and they play it. And I'm like, oh yeah, who'd you put on your team or what thoughts do you have?
No, it's incredible. I mean, it's great, right, for the league in 2 years already that they're having that inclusion. It took a lot longer for the WNBA to be included in 2K, and obviously that happened a few years back. So it's really cool to see that. That was awesome news for us.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I haven't played Chell in a while either, so haven't had the chance to play, but I might download it tonight and
You should, yeah. Yeah, let me know if there are any players you like.
Seriously, I'll let you know.
He's gonna send you his scouting report.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the homework.
That's the homework. I would love to just wrap up here. This has been a great conversation. Seriously, you've shared so many insights. And given that the PWHL is so new, we're just finishing up the second year. Where do you hope to see it in 5 years? We're seeing such a growth of women's sports in general. You look at the NWSL, you look at the WNBA. Obviously, you guys are coming up behind them. What's like the goal that you see the PWHL achieving in the next 5?
Well, now that we've added West Coast teams, I hope we're chartering by then.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I mean, I do. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious. Like, I think there's going to continue to be an appetite for expansion. I know that there's some rumors out there that this isn't the end of the expansion and this is maybe phase 1. And it'll be interesting to see, like, how many teams can we add without diluting the product? Because I think that's what our fans are gravitating towards. People come, they're like, wow, the hockey's so good. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, welcome to women's hockey. It's been good for a long time. A lot of these players have been playing, Hillary Knight, Kendall Coyne, Schofield, Marie-Philippe Poulin. These have been players who've been playing for 15 years, and more. And now they just have a platform and a stage to play on. And it's easily consumed because it's broadcast. You can watch it on YouTube. You can access it. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we even have a few more teams than adding Seattle and Vancouver. I hope that, salaries can continue to improve, the resources continue to improve. These players, they honestly deserve it. They put so much into it. They are truly professionals and they're starting to get paid like it, but we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. Josh, you can probably speak more to the WNBA, but just seeing kind of that shift that they've been taking, elevating the professionalism that those women are now encountering and like the Liberty's new facilities that they're getting.
Incredible. Yeah.
Incredible. And like the funding that's behind it and the sponsorship and the marketing. What is it? Rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
Like it speaks so well for that.
Yeah. Yeah. If we're on anything close to that path, like I'm going to be really excited. Yeah.
It'd be cool tapping into the Boston Fleet and I'll be like, I know her.
Yeah.
I know her on TV. That'd be awesome. But no, this has been really eye-opening and just incredibly fun to listen to you talk about this. And I feel like I'm vicariously living my GM dreams through you. But again, seriously, from both of us, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a blast.